Hi, my name is Stephen Dunn, and I'm new to 3D printing. And in researching the 3D printers, my wife and I really couldn't find any information on the CR-10V3. Lots of information on the CR-10, a couple of things on the V2, but the V3 really, with the Titan direct drive and things, really was what we were wanting to start out with, just from everything that we were reading. And so I decided to go ahead and get that one, and I had this crazy idea when I got it. Why don't I go ahead and do an unboxing and an assembly and maybe even review of that particular model. So that is what this video is. I hope you enjoy it. All right, so what we have here is the Creality CR-10 version 3. I've not seen a lot of reviews online about the version 3. The version 2 had some. The CR-10, of course, has plenty. I haven't seen anything about the CR3 or the CR-10 version 3. And I really wanted to kind of pull it out of the box, do a video of assembling it together, get some information together, and kind of give you some more details onto it. I ordered this directly from Creality, the Creality official shop. Took a little longer to get here than it says on the website, but it was still within their 14-day period, so not all a bad deal. Actually, a little cheaper than I could get it anywhere else anyway, so it felt like a pretty good deal. I will say, delivered from UPS. I do have some steps. Somebody has stepped on this box, and there's a little corner indentation over here as well from the box. So you can see here where this is indented here, and we've got somebody stepped on the box too. So you know, it is what it is, right? So we'll take a look at it. I know Creality does a really good job of packaging their stuff, so I'm not too worried about that. So we'll get this box out here a little bit, and let's open her up and see what we got. Now, I will say that my wife and I are fairly new to the 3D printing. We bought an Ender 5 just a couple of weeks ago from someone online, and have been getting some pretty good prints out of it. Still kind of newbies, still learning about how the prints and things need to be done, but so far this has been going pretty good. So we're still new to this whole thing. It's a technology thing. We love technology, at least I do. She works for technology. Okay, so open the box here, and right away, as I'm pulling the top layer off, I can feel there are other pieces attached to this, of the foam. And that's one thing, again, Creality does a really good job of packaging their items. So you can see here, the foam is cut very well for the Creality parts and pieces that are in here, and it fits really nice and tight in there. Okay, so let's set the foam pieces aside. And right on top, instruction booklet. Now, this is the CR-10V3. So the CR-10 is a larger plate. It's got a 300 by 300 plate, and it does a 400 millimeter vertical. So that's a really nice vertical there. Okay, so we'll pull this first piece out. This is going to be our Y-axis, and the heat plate, etc. there. All right, let's set that aside. I got another piece of foam. I'm gonna pull that piece of foam off here. And inside, of course, we have the roll of PLA white, 200 grams of that, print temperature 195 to 220. So just a nice PLA, just the generic stuff that they always send in with their packages. We have the box that has the accessories, the nuts, bolts, tool kits, all of those things inside of it. So there are the tools, the screws, the filament brake sensor. Here's the USB, the Z-axis limit switch, etc. There. Power cord, some other, one of the limit switches, nuts and bolts, things like that again. So all those parts and pieces in that box. We'll pull those out here in just a moment. Looks like the next thing to pull out of here is going to be the control module. So as you can see here, the control module, again, just the standard, you know, Creality unit. While I have this out, one of the first things you always want to do, here in the United States especially, is you do want to come in and turn that limit switch
from 230 volt to 115 volt. So when I get the tools out, that'll be one of the first things that I want to do to that unit. I'm gonna set this over here, okay? And there's a nice piece of foam in there holding that piece in. Looks like the only other piece, should be a couple more actually. So here I've got the, and it feels like the other pieces I need are in here. Yep, I see it. So of course this is gonna be your gantry with your Z-axis and your X-axis. And the one nice thing about the CR-10 version 3 that they've done is they've taken the extruder and they've actually mounted it's a Titan extruder, they've mounted it directly to the top of the heating element. So it makes it really nice that it's going to be a direct feed versus using the tube. So that is one of the reasons that we wanted to go with this unit. We'd read so many good things about during the research that we were doing for our printers that we wanted to do a direct in versus going through the Bowden tube, okay? In here, there is a little pocket. You wanna make sure you get these out, because in that pocket is going to be the Z-axis bars, okay? So make sure that you, again, they do a really good job of packing things into these foam. So make sure when you're pulling this out, you get those pieces out of that foam as well. All right, looks like that is it. All the rest of the foam is just there. So we can fold this box up and get out of our way. Okay, so we've got the base frame, we've got the gantry frame. I wanna look a little bit closer at what is in this little accessories box in here. So as I mentioned, we've got the power cable in here. We've got the limit switch cable in here as well. Of course, you've got the different nuts and bolts for assembling the unit itself. There's going to be some M25 bolts in here that we'll utilize here at the very beginning, some M5 bolts, etc. Here are the brackets for the those bars, the support bars, the rods, the pull rods. And it looks like these are the nuts and bolts for the pull rods as well. So got those. There is your putty knife. Comes in very handy to get things off of the plate. Here is going to be the holder that will actually mount at the top of the gantry for your filament, for your PLA or whatever filament you might be utilizing. Okay. It looks like these are the nuts and bolts to actually bolts I should say, to attach the gantry to the base frame piece. And then there is a piece of Bowden tube in here as well. So that is what is inside that accessory box. And then in the packet, accessory packet, oop, there's a T-nut. Don't lose the T-nuts here. We're going to, of course, have wire ties. And then pull this piece out here. We're going to have the nozzle clean out piece, right? And we've got the wrenches, the Allen wrenches and screwdrivers, etc. in here. The one really great thing that Creality does with their Allen wrenches is that they have these Allen wrenches that are going to be a little bit more rounded on the ends. If you look here, it's actually rounded on the end, and this makes it really nice to be able to actually utilize this in an angled position. So if you're getting into a tight spot and you have to be at a little bit of an angle, this unit actually will stay in there. It won't strip out the bolt. It won't strip out the Allen wrench itself. So it's really nice that they actually include these in the packets as well. And then here in this little cardboard piece is going to be our cutters. So these are going to be the plastic cutters, the side flat cutters, which are really nice to have. I've actually been stealing my wife's from her crafting supplies, but these are a really nice unit, nice and flat. You can cut right at the flat level, so it makes it really nice for those as well. Okay, so I'm going to follow along with the instructions and just go ahead and do this construction essentially from the instruction booklet. Now, I will say that they have a video online and it's really quiet. They play music and blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna go ahead and step through this as quickly and as easily as I can. I may decided to speed this up on the video so you don't have to see every moment. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to attach the gantry to the base. And I wanna make sure I get the wires out of the way, but if we look closely at the base here, there's actually a couple of holes that are going to go into the holes that are already pre-drilled into the bottom of the unit here. So it's gonna be very simple. Lay them on the side. Now with the other brackets and the extruder or the stepper motor, things that are over here, it's gonna be a little bit more difficult to lay it flat, but we wanna get those bolts, all 4 bolts started and kind of get them tightened down, just hand tightened, making sure. And then we wanna try and make sure when we actually tighten them down, we tighten them down kind of equally, do a couple turns on each screw until it's all lined up and tightened down appropriately. So first off, we'll just go ahead and take and place that unit on there, and I'm gonna lay it again.
One thing that I do wrong here is that I don't actually push the Z-steppers up. And if you look at the recommendations from Creality in their book, as well as on their install process, they actually take those Z-steppers and that X bar and they move it up on the gantry so that it's easier to lay it flatter to put that in. So just wanted to point that out here. You might want to do that, make it a little bit easier for you to install.
All right, so again, I want to make sure I get these lined up appropriately so I can see the holes line up through the bottom here. There they are. I'm going to take this and get that first bolt started. And one thing that you want to make sure you do is to get it to where maybe it's going at an angle, it's not quite going in finger tight or with your fingers, because that means you're stripping that bolt and you don't want to strip that bolt. So I'm just going to get these started and make sure that I don't have any tension on the bolt so that I can get it in there quite a ways by hand. Right? Now, you do want to get your Allen wrenches out. Now, you're going to have 4 different sizes of Allen wrenches. So you want to make sure that the Allen wrench you're going to get is going to be the correct size. And that's going to be the largest size, I believe. Yeah. So it's the largest size Allen wrench you got on there. And I'm going to go ahead and get these down to where they're just snug, but not fully tightened. All right. And if you need to kind of pick the frame up a little bit, move it around a little bit, because those should go in fairly easy without any force up until that point that they're tightening down to that tightening spot, right? So these are pretty simple. Okay, so now that those are snug, everything feels nice and tight there. Okay, so now I'm going to come through and use the longer end as my leverage and just tighten those down. Just about a 1/4 of a turn there, maybe 1/2 a turn, until you get a little bit more resistance. But you just want to make sure it's tight. Now, one thing I will say as I'm doing this, one thing that I really like the things that they do with the Crealities is that you can see here on this wire, there's a little yellow band on this wire. And this yellow band says Z. So I know that that's for my Z stepper motor. So it makes it really nice. Or actually, this is going to be the limit switch, but it makes it really nice to know where those go. It's very, very helpful. All right, so that is nice and tight in there. I'll go ahead and set this up. Okay, so now there we go. So we should have everything down there nice and tight. Now on the back side of this, I just noticed this is really nice. You'll notice that it actually has one stepper motor over on the side. Actually, I lied, it's 2. So there are 2 stepper motors for the Z. And again, I'm a newbie, so if I get some terminology wrong, I do apologize for that. But I'm learning things. I've learned quite a bit over the last few weeks that I've been doing this. So, all right, the next step, double check with my little trusty pull rod installation is going to be next. And that is going to be the rods that are in that little pocket again if you didn't remember to grab that out of that pocket. You want to make sure you do that. So go ahead and pull those out. There's going to be 2 per side, right? All right, so let's get the parts for that. The parts for that are actually going to say pull rod accessory. I think the first thing that we want to do is we want to also attach the L brackets to the top. Okay, so there are 2 L brackets here. And the L brackets are going to attach with this pack right here. This is actually going to have some T-nuts and a couple of screws in there as well. The easiest way to do the T-nuts is to simply come in and you want to make sure that you have the rounded end, as you can see here. I want to have that rounded end, and I want to screw that just ever so slightly into the screw. Now, of course, I need to get the bracket in here, so I'm going to put the bracket through, or the screw through the bracket, and then I'll take that rounded end on that T-nut and just simply bring it on just a few threads. I don't want to tighten that down by any means. Just bring that on a few threads, like so. So we'll get that done on all 4 of those brackets. Excuse my hand being in the way there. Okay, that'll be a little too tight there. We'll just get those on like that. And we do that with both brackets. All right, now that I have that on with both brackets, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here to the frame. And the way that these slotted frames work, essentially, I want to get that T-nut parallel to the slot, and it will go into that slot. And then I want to come over and flush up the bracket to the edge of the gantry top frame here. I want to make sure that that's flush there at the top. And then we'll take our appropriate sized Allen wrench, and even that one's not the appropriate one. Where'd it go? Oh, it's still in the bag. There we go. And tighten it down. And as we tighten that down, that T-nut will actually turn inside of that slot, that V-slot that we put in there on that rail. And we'll make it so that it locks in to that unit. So what I want to do is I want to get this so that it is flush with the edge here, and tighten that down. And I'm also trying to make sure that it's flush with the top of the bar there as well. Okay, nice and tight. Now what this is gonna do is it's gonna help that our Z doesn't flex as the prints are happening. So, okay, I'm gonna move and do the other side. So again, we wanna make sure that those T-nuts are parallel to the bar, slide them in, and then we'll tighten those down. So that's nice and flush with the sides, flush with the top, okay? Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to take my rods, and I'm going to take the threaded unit that does not have a nut on it, and I'm going to thread that into one side of the rod. And go about halfway, and then I'll grab the other unit and bolt that on. And I'm going to hold the thread down with my finger as I'm doing that, just to make sure that it gets good thread in both units. And we'll just tighten those down until that's nice and tight. Okay, the same thing on the other side. Next, I'm going to take a nut and one of the units that has the bolt hole on the end of that. So it's the bolt that has the hole on the end of it. I'm going to add a nut to that and just kind of get it to about, maybe about halfway or so on there. And I'm going to then tighten that down onto the end of the rod. And I'm going to do this 4 times. Okay, so I'm going to do this on each rod. So I'll go ahead and speed the video up here so you don't have to Watch me do that 4 times. Now, while I'm continuing to finish this up, again, this is the V3, version 3 of the CR-10, which is a very popular, I know, version of the Creality 3D printers. And I will say that
And it was at this point that I realized I had screwed up. Now, on the V3, what they do is they ship out the base portion with caps on the ends where the rods will go into. You pull those caps off, and then in the bag, in your accessories, you'll find some caps with holes in them. So you want to make sure you get those caps out, plop those caps into the ends to screw in when you screw your rods in. I made the mistake. You'll see this here later in the video if I leave it in, that you'll see I pop those caps off and replace them. So pay attention to that.
So I've got my rods ready. Oops. Okay. Lastly, we're going to use these in the booklet. They call these isolation columns, if you will. Essentially, it's going to be an M530 bolt with a sleeve on it, and that sleeve is going to set, I believe it goes this way, yeah. Set like this, so it gives a little bit of a gap. I'll go ahead and show this here. So putting the bolt through, and then I've got the isolation sleeve in there after that bolt, and then that is going to screw right into this point here. So we'll take our Allen wrench, oops, get that screw hole lined up in there, right? And this will very easily screw in there, okay? And then on the front, we're gonna do something very, very similar. We're going to go ahead and again, put the sleeve on, but we'll do it after we go through the bolt. But what I need to do is actually come in and I need to pop off the tube cover. Okay, so I'm going to pop off this guy right here, and it's just a plastic piece that just pops off. And as I do that, you'll see that there is a screw hole in there. So I'm going to take up and line up my rod with that screw hole. Now you can see here that mine is not lining up, so I need to give it some slack. I can loosen up the bolt at the top, I can loosen up the bolt at the bottom, trying to equalize them out a little bit. I want to make sure that the holes line up a little bit more, and I can always tighten things down then. So then this should slide through, and we want to put the spacer in there as well. So here you can see I've got the bolt and the spacer in there. Looks like I need to loosen this up just a little bit more. Loosen this up one more time. That feels better. That feels really good. It's going in there nice and easy. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down. Tighten down the upper one. And then what I want to do is make sure that I screw the nuts, top and bottom, and then use the wrench that was included. And I want to make sure that I tighten those to that frame. It'll hold that in there nice and tight. Now we've got a nice Z support, triangular support in here. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So this would be a little bit more difficult, I think, to get in the cameras, but essentially the next thing that we have is the filament brake sensor to mount on the top. You'll see that it actually has T-nuts already mounted to the bottom of this unit. I had a T-nut that was loose earlier, and that was actually on the bottom of the filament spool holder. So I did attach that back to that. But again, these just line up in the slot here. So I'm gonna get this mounted up on the top. And they show it kind of coming over to the side. I'm gonna kind of get it about maybe, oh, I don't know, about a third of the way in there. I wanna get the appropriate Allen wrench in here. And this is one of those areas where it's really nice that they have that ball on the end, because there is a little bit of an angle that needs to be done on this installation with these nuts. And actually, if I can get my fingers in there, my fingers are kind of fat, I could tighten them down by hand a little bit first. The nice thing about the sensor, and you want to make sure that you get the sensor where it's facing outward, because there is a light on the sensor, so that if it does detect a filament break or filament missing, you'll see that in there from the light. Okay, so that is attaching that, and then they recommend attaching a spool holder as well. So this is where one of the T-nuts was loose earlier, and I'm gonna go ahead and attach it on the top as well. Again, right next to this. I think as the spool is here, it can bring the filament into the sensor here at the top. Now just make the unit much, much taller. I'm probably out of camera on one of my cameras here, but that's okay. And that is not the right size. Love how they have 4 different sizes on these Allen wrenches. It makes it so much easier to do these things. Okay, got the right one now. So this is the 3rd size down. So not quite the smallest. No, this is the 2nd one up from the smallest here. Okay, tighten those down that way, and then turn it on its side. Get some leverage on that thing. Tighten it down completely. And this again is going to be your spool holder. And what I'm going to do, and I show it, good, that's what I'm doing. They show it doing it this way, this is what I'm going to do. So these come off really, really easy. It's just like a half a turn, pops right off, right? Put that back through there. Line this back up, tighten it down. There's your spool holder. Okay, so again, spool holder, spools there, goes in through the filament on the top. So this next part, we're actually going to install the limit switch for the Z-axis. And that is found in this little box. If you can see from up above. There's actually a couple things in here, so we'll make sure we get the correct one out. Okay. And you'll notice there's a couple of things in here. Oh, hey. Wow, I wish they would have shown that in the pictures. So apparently, replacing your plastic caps means also replacing the caps with holes. So now I gotta undo my screws down there, caps with the holes. Yeah. Should look closer at the instructions. Don't make this mistake, okay? We'll fix this in just a moment. Okay. So the Z-limit switch is going to be this unit right here. This is the Z-limit switch that has the plate on it. And this is the one that we want to make sure that we get in the correct location. Okay. And so this actually will go this way. Okay. There's 2 screw holes that you can see here in the side, so that this will go in this location, so that when the unit comes down, it hits that switch and turns it off. Now in the kit, there are these two M416 these 2 M416 bolts. Those are the ones that we'll use. So just going to get this lined up. That first bolt in there, usually once you get the first one in, the others become much, much easier to do. say that, but maybe not. There it is. Okay. And this is an M4, so it should be the third size. Should be, but it's not. Okay, there we go. Tighten that down. Tighten that down. Don't want to tighten too tight. It is plastic. You don't want to break that plastic. And while we're here, you'll notice this Z switch plug here. This Z plug, and again, you can kind of see the Z on there. That Z plug is for that limit switch. It probably would have been easier to actually plug this in before I mounted it, but you'll want to plug that into that unit. Now, as I said, I had messed up. I need to put these caps on. I'm going to do that after I get the rest of this built. It's just going to be unscrewing, put a cap on, screw it back in. So it's not something I need to do for the video, but make sure, I'll even put a note in the video, make sure you get these in there first. Okay, I thought there should have been a hole, but. Now, the one thing I do want to point out, in this unit, they did include an 8 gigabyte SD card, and the SD card is a full size. It's actually not going to be the micro SDs, which I have with my Ender 5. So I thought that was pretty interesting. It does have the micro SD slot on this USB card reader, but it actually is a full SD card. So that's kind of interesting. Next, we're going to take this extension kit, and this is actually going to be where we plug this in to the extruder detector there at the top. Okay, so this is going to be your material detection unit. Now, here at the bottom, I do have a Z stepper motor connection, which I can go ahead and make here. Okay. The material detection is actually at the top. All right, so if we look at the top of the X bar going across the Z steppers here, you'll see this cable connection. And this is going to be the cable connection for your material detector. So this one is going to just plug in here. There we go. Okay. And then the other one just will go up and connect at the top. It is a little bit of a stretch, but it does connect. Luckily, that can't go down any further. Now, the one nice thing I will say that they've done here with this kit is that you don't have a ton of wires to connect around. There was a Z-stepper motor connection on this side. There's one here on the other side. Just quickly go ahead and plug that in. But again, it's got the little yellow band on it, makes it really nice. The Y-stepper motor's already plugged in. The limit switch is already there. Everything's there that you need on the other side. So that is great, okay? Here on the back of the power unit, you're gonna notice that it actually has different connections than what we're used to. You're used to plugging in a bunch of different wires. At least on the Ender 5, that's the way it was for me. I had to plug in a bunch of different wires. Here, they've actually gone with a much, much easier system. So from the base unit here, I can actually take this, and you can kind of see how the plug looks here. And you just want to line that up with a V slot. There we go. And just push that in until it doesn't push anymore, and then go ahead and tighten that nut down. Oh, and the one thing that I want to make sure that we do, because I forgot to do it after we got all the tools and everything out, is grab the little screwdriver. And I mentioned this before, but right there where it says 230 volts versus 115 volts, we want to make sure we go in and check that. Slide that over to that 115 volt. Here in the United States, that's what we need to have that on, okay? All right, back to this unit. You now have two more connections, and you'll notice you have kind of a longer cable and a shorter cable, and essentially you're going to have two connections that need to come into this unit. And so I'm going to take the longer cable, set it aside for just a second, and I'm going to take this shorter one, oops, take it back, this is the longer one. The shorter one goes down below, okay. I knew I had this, right? Okay, so I'll make sure I get my cables tangled up here. The smaller square unit here, there's actually a spot, let me move this aside, there's a spot here at the back on the bottom, tab goes on the bottom, and that just simply clicks in. Very, very easy to do. Again, same thing, you've got one connection here at the top. Again, you want to have that clip there on the bottom. There you go. I kind of, I like to start those off at an angle, getting that first row in there, and then as you push it in, all of the tubes, all of the little slots line up, pushes on very, very easy. And so there we go. That is all together there. Now, I'm not near power here at the moment, so I'm gonna go ahead and just plug this power cord into the back, but I'm not plugging it into power just yet. So just in putting together the CR-10V3, this looks like I'm done, okay? Looking at the instruction booklet, it talks about bed leveling, which if you don't know how to do, there are plenty of videos out there to do that. I'm not going to step through that. Loading the filament, and then start printing. So there's really nothing else in here saying what that extra piece is for. Yep, it does. Spare limit switch. So it is just a spare limit switch, just in case you need it. And yeah, that looks like all the parts. So I'm going to fix my mistake, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. So there you have it. There you have the build of the there you have the build of the CR-10V3. So version 3 here, again, it's got a 300 millimeter by 300 millimeter plate, 400 millimeter print Z height. The one thing I did not really talk about as I was going through and assembling this is something that is very common that you want to do whenever you're assembling a 3D printer. You get it in a kit like this. Now, this was really pre-assembled nicely, so I didn't have to do a lot of monkeying with the stepper motors and different things like that. However, the one thing that you do want to be aware of is that sometimes things can get loosened up in shipment, or maybe they over tightened it in when they were putting it together. One classic example, that will be the wheels that will run that are connected here to the brackets that run in those V slots, and you'll want to make sure that those aren't too tight, and you also want to make sure they're not too loose. Essentially, the rule of thumb that everybody talks about when you read about it or watch other videos is with the wheel on the back. If you can hold that motor and you can turn that wheel, this one might be a little too tight. When you turn that wheel, if it's trying to turn that motor, and you really can't, I'm having to put a lot of force on that wheel to turn it, then you need to loosen it up a little bit. I'm checking all 3 wheels on this unit, and they're pretty tight, so I'm going to loosen this up just a little bit so that I can turn those. You don't want them too loose, but you want there to be force, but not too much force. You'll wear down those wheels pretty simply. So you want to make sure you check all of those. You want to check everything. Make sure everything's tightened down. Use the tools that they put in there, the wrenches that they put in there in the kits, and just check all your connections, all your wired connections. Make sure at the top of the frame here, for example, there's the bolts when they assemble them together. Yeah, those aren't super tight, so I'm going to tighten those down. So just go through, make sure everything's tightened, ready to go, and then plug it in and run your first test. So the one thing I will say is that inside here, of course, is going to be your power supply, it's going to be your motherboard, etc. The power supply is a name brand power supply. I forget the name off the top of my head. I'll put some text in here, maybe to show you what it is down there at the bottom. But also the motherboard is the quiet motherboard, and it's the one I'm hoping I can get soon for my Ender 5 and quiet it down a little bit. Although it's not super loud, my wife's Cricket's louder than
my 3D printer. But so it's nice and quiet. I'm going to check that out in my test print as well. So I'm going to open up my filament package, get my filament ran, level the bed up, and just check all of those things and do a quick little test print on it. And I'll post that here in the video towards the end as well. But from a build standpoint, very quick, very easy. Probably took about 30 minutes. The commentary, of course, added a little bit of time to it. Screwing up and not putting the plastic caps in there initially kind of messed me up a little bit, having to go back and redo some things. But all in all, very, very easy to assemble. I'm just going to check all the nuts and bolts, screws, make sure the wheels turn the way they're supposed to, and get this thing ready to print. Okay, so I currently have my first test print going, and this thing is quiet. I mean, compared to my Ender 5, this thing is like silent. Here, you can hear the fan inside of this unit. There's a fan on, of course, the hot end extruder, right? But listen, folks. Okay, here's my stepper motor for the Y. It's moving back and forth. Okay, my X steppers here. Nothing. No noise whatsoever. It is completely silent. So a really, really nice upgrade from my Ender 5. So I just am doing the dog print. Started this, just 10 minutes ago. I may have to let this go for a while it's kind of late here, so I'm going to go to bed probably. Let it run. I feel confident that it's going to be fine. Probably check on it here in a little bit. I do like the fans. I don't have, of course, the version 2, but the way they've got the fans set up on this version 1, that direct drive, I mean, everything just looks really, really good. I'm interested to see how, if there's any streaming or anything on here with this direct drive setup. It looks like there's a piece of plastic underneath. There's a really nice shiny cover on here. I don't want to pull that off because I think that's where this logo is coming on and things. But behind that, it almost looks like there's a piece of plastic they forgot to pull off of the screen in the back behind it. So I may have to open this case up and get in there to where that board is and pull that plastic off of there. And it's kind of annoying. You can kind of see where, like right here, for example, that line's coming across right there. That's from that filament on the inside there not being pulled off. So I really think this is supposed to stay. I pulled off a clear piece off the cover here. I think this nice shiny finish is supposed to stay for their logo. So I think that's underneath it, and I'm trying to figure a way to get out into there and get that out. But guys, all in all, great build. Looking forward to seeing how this thing finishes printing. It's super quiet and super, super excited with this. So we'll give you an update again here in a moment. So here I've gone and turned the unit, the board, so that the fan is now facing off to the sides, not facing my camera. Maybe that'll help with the sound, I don't know. I mean, this is so quiet. So much quieter than my Ender 5, so I'm super, super happy with this. And it's a huge unit. I mean, it's tall. So, you're getting 400 millimeters in your Z, so you can create some really tall units with this. Nice big build plate. Quality of the print so far has been pretty good. I noticed just a little bit of strain right there at the feet. Not sure if that's going to come through very well since it's moving. It's kind of hard to focus on it. But that's so far the only, there you can see good. It's really the only thing I've noticed on this. Now this is just sent from the G code that was on the
card that came with the unit, so it's not really something that I've gone through and sliced. It was something that was pre-sliced, but anyway, yeah, so far going really well with this build. All right, it's morning, and here is the print. Let's see if we can focus on that there. Looks pretty good. I did see a little bit of stringing in the feet there, and then also I noticed on the tail right there. But other than that, very clean, beautiful print. Now this was straight out of the box, just putting the G-code from the card reader onto the printer and running it. And I have to say, I'm pretty impressed. This is without doing any dialing in or anything like that. So again, CR-10V3, so far out of the box, great printer. All right, so there's my assembly, and let's talk about a review. I mean, the CR-10V3 is my second printer. My Ender 5 was my first printer, and the CR-10 is definitely quieter. And actually, the print quality that I'm getting off of it is much better, but it is a little bit slower as well. So I will say that there's a little bit of a drawback on that. However, the quality has been phenomenal. So here is the dog, and see if we can focus on that guy here. No, it's still focusing on me, but it looks really good. I'm pretty impressed with the quality. There's a little bit of stringing in the ears. There was a little bit on the tail as well, but overall not bad. The cat printed off. Now these are just on the G-code for these on the SD card. I did have stringing between the ears again, but not horrible. Cleaned up very nicely. Very happy with that print as well. So I'm a Star Wars fan, so one of the things I wanted to do was to see how Baby Yoda would come out. And this is the results on my CR-10, and I couldn't be happier. This is, again, on the CR-10V3. It turned out very well. I did use supports. Some of those were a little difficult to get off, but you know, I did it cleanly. I have to admit, I did have to glue the fingers back on the hand here because the way I did the supports was they broke off. But a little bit of stringing, not much. Overall, the quality of this particular print has been phenomenal. So I'm very happy with the quality that we're getting from the CR-10V3. I'm currently printing some it's a 3D print marker holders for my wife's crafting area. And so once those are done, I plan on switching over to some wood PLA and going for a Groot. So I hope you like this review and build. I know the build can be a little bit of annoying. I cut out a ton of stuff. Overall, it was quick. So anyway, sorry for some of the newbie mistakes, but you know, we all got to learn, we all got to grow, and that's what I'm doing here. So if you enjoyed this, let me know. If there's anything that I can do better, let me know. And if there's anything you want to see, let me know that as well. Just leave me a message down below, and I appreciate you taking the time to spend with me today on this CR-10V3 review.